Okay.
It has been.
Just for a few minutes.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Thursday, May 2nd meeting of the Business and Community Affairs Committee. Today, we have 5 items on our agenda, so it's a full one. And I understand that we have a hard stop at about 5:15. So we're going to try to work through these as quickly as possible. Hopefully, we can get to everything today. The first item up for discussion is discussion regarding the results of the survey regarding a potential weather museum. And I believe that we have a presentation from staff. Thank you very
Come
much.
on up. This is our consulting group that conducts these surveys on our behalf. And whether you got anything on PowerPoint or if it's all
Some around there.
hard
Okay.
copy, that's great.
I think we maybe have a PowerPoint as well. I don't know if it's somebody loaded it or not.
It'd be right there on the desktop to see you recognize
Could be that.
It looks
Yep,
like
there we
normal
go.
museum.
Perfect. Love it when a plan comes together.
Perfect. A couple more here. All right. Well, I know you guys have a lot on the agenda, so I'll just try to go through this as quick as possible. Feel free to stop me if you have questions or want me to clarify anything. We did a survey of Norman registered voters, and it was about 300 voters, and that was done at the beginning of last month. Just sort of some key findings. We kind of wanted to know how familiar people were with the National Weather Museum, or the National Weather Museum, as well as the National Weather Service and its affiliation with it. And sort of, I'll let you kind of you all go through this on your own, but because this will kind of be explained a little bit in the charts here. But well, there we go. Sort of the breakdown. This is sort of the representative breakdown of Norman voters. So about a even split on Republicans and Democrats. About 20% other. Little majority of four-year college degrees or more. Slightly more females than males in terms of registered voters. And then when we're looking at voters, obviously the older populations are those that are more highly registered as a percentage. So this is obviously a quality of life issue, and so when we ask them, how important are quality of life issues in Norman in terms of what the city is doing for you, somewhat are very important, obviously huge. So over 80% of voters said that those are either somewhat or very important. Are they familiar with the National Weather Museum? A vast majority of voters were, over 81%. And do they know if it is affiliated? Do we know did we ask them if they said yes, that they were aware of it, did they know that it was affiliated with the National Weather Service? Not quite a majority said yes, 43% said yes. Quite a few were unsure, with 20% said they did not think it was affiliated with it. And so basically we asked if we were going to build a if we're going to create funding for a National Weather Museum, would you be supportive of that? And so a little over a majority, 55%, said that they were either very or somewhat likely to support that kind of initiative, with 45% being either unlikely or somewhat unlikely or very unlikely. So we gave them 2 options for a bond. 1 year, version 1 is what we're calling this, is sort of the 10-year bond. And so I've got this broken down for you. Essentially, if you look at the chart on the left here, that's 52% said that they would oppose the bond issue, 39% would vote to approve it, 10% would not vote. I've got on the charts on the right different, because I know there's a question potentially about what election date we would want to put this on. And so those are on the right here. At the top, you've got general election voters. So this would be voters who you'd see appear in November. Then you've got primary election voters, so one's in June. And then minor election voters at the bottom right, and those are voters that would that turn out for elections that are not on a statewide general primary or runoff ballot. So your school board elections, mayoral, city council elections, things of that nature. The closest to the winning margin is the one on the minor election voters, and so 45% yes, 49% no. I can't read that. 6% other, or would not vote. And so that's your closest to victory there. Reasons people would vote yes. we kind of pulled these into the top 10, and this was a free response question, so voters were able to kind of, in their own words, say why they would vote yes on this issue, and it was, the clear favorites there were support for tourism, support for education and science, and then just general support for the community. Reasons people would vote no: they want to prioritize other issues, they believe they have high property taxes, and they have general opposition to tax increases. If we look at option 2, it does slightly better than option 1. This is the 20-year version. And so, again, you've got those 3 charts on the right, but in general, if you look at all voters, it's 48% opposed, 40% approved, 12% would not vote. And so, again, we've got those general election at the top right, then the middle primary election, and the bottom minor election voters. And so, again, like we saw at the first version, the minor election voters is the one that's closest to victory there with 47% in approval, 49% opposed. And likewise, again, a lot of these voters didn't really differentiate in terms of why they would support or oppose them. In general, it's the same arguments for both. It's economic growth, support for science museums, and then, again, why they would oppose financial burden, taxes, general opposition, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm not going to go through the crosstabs because this is lengthy, but they're in your packets. And so if you want to dive in and see a specific how people are in favor or opposed to certain things, you can do that. But I'll open it up for questions, and feel free to ask any if you have any.
I'll go ahead and start. Were there any kind of marketing materials or potential renderings or anything shown, or was this kind of just questions asked in a vacuum?
This was in a vacuum. This is really a baseline survey for you all to use to kind of make some decisions on how to take this and maybe use it as a as a baseline for your educational campaign moving forward.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions from council members?
What was the sample size?
300 official voters. So it's got a margin of error of around 6%.
Do you know what the breakdown of that was in terms of ward and location within the city?
I don't have that ready, but I can pull that.
I just didn't know if we had a good distribution of rural versus urban versus suburban, kind of
Yeah.
full representation.
That may be in the crosstabs. I can look and see. I don't know if I don't think I pulled that for you, but I'm happy to send that to you all afterwards.
It'd be great to know. Councilmember Grant.
I see homelessness listed a lot for a no on bond option year 10. Doesn't seem to be as much of an influence at all on the bond option 220 year. I don't know if that's about. Is it because people want to see a shelter, or they, what is the reason for that being feedback for a no?
Where are you seeing that? I'm sorry.
It's the blue that next to the city and the word cloud.
Oh, that.
It's also above infrastructure.
Must be blind here.
Housing is
Anyway.
also on there, yeah.
These are sort of a lot of that people were saying you need to focus on other issues. So in
Veterans
this,
are on
yeah,
there too. It just is, would love to know more if you had
Yeah.
like a comment or two.
any of that where they're addressing other issues, that's voters. Typically, the gist of their response was, you don't need to focus on this issue. Focus on this other issue that I care about. And so that was the gist of that. If you're gonna use these tax dollars, use it in a way I would prefer that's not.
And I just think it's interesting, was it in the reasons for no return?
It is there.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was looking at the other one for yes. Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Holman.
Yeah, just a little overview. It seems like a lot of folks are maybes and need more information about what exactly it even is. And it kind of sounds like if there was a project and it had backing behind it already, and then they came to the public and said, we've got this all ready to go, we just need a missing piece. It seems like maybe just by preliminarily reading through this, that voters might be more likely if it had more, I guess, to it already.
Yeah. No, I
And
agree.
but they won't vote for it if it's just here's a thing, will the public vote for it? But if it already has stuff behind it that's like, we're ready to go, we've got supporters, we've got financial contributions pledged or whatever, and we just need this portion of city funding to get it over the hump.
I completely
That's what
agree.
it looks like, kind of.
That's exactly why I was asking if this was done in a vacuum, because I feel like these numbers would be a little different if, yeah, you were shown an image or maybe potentially what's in the experience and, where a site potentially even. And all this is just an idea on paper, and it's kind of hard to get excited about just words. You need a little more
Yeah.
than that. No, I think you're exactly right on that. Councilmember Schuler.
Not exactly related to this, but I think if we're willing to do surveys for something like spending money on, our bridge maintenance bond, and we're doing a survey about this museum, like, why aren't we doing a community survey around the proposed entertainment district?
That's a good question. I mean, I think if this was a vote for the entire
Not
city.
saying that you have an
No,
answer.
I'll give you what I think. If this was a vote for the entire city and every Norman resident was going to be taxed, I think that is appropriate. But as we're talking about a TIF, you would only be taxed if you owned property in the district or spent money in the district. And so, not saying that one's right or the other, I just think that there's a distinction to be made there, and definitely worth having a conversation on.
I think for us, though, this is about information and about seeing what our residents want or don't want. And there is more information about that district than we even have right here for this.
Sure.
And so I'm just saying, as a council, we might think about how do we get feedback that is from our whole community about different things that we might be spending money or diverting money from our general fund into a different place. So yes, it might not be property taxes for everybody, but it is, it's going to impact
Yeah.
the community based on, how we're using our sales tax.
They always say knowledge is power, so having more knowledge to make a decision is not a bad thing.
Mr. City Manager, just saying that this might be something that we want to move forward to get more information before making a final vote on that one too.
Agree with that.
Okay, are there any other questions from council on this issue? I'll just say that, I know these say, it's in favor of the no response, but to me, that doesn't mean we don't pursue it any further. I think, there's still enough meat on the bone here that we should at least take the next steps and kind of see if this is a viable idea with a site, with a budget, with some renderings, and then maybe actually go back to the voters with an actual plan.
Yeah.
Because I hate to take this as gospel without any kind of backing information to it. Councilmember Holman.
Yes, I agree. I don't think it's a no, it's done. Maybe it means we're not ready to send it to a vote of the people for anything quite yet, but it needs some more work, and I think it's something people are interested in already. And a lot of people are responding that they would likely support, but if there can be more details about it and information and things that people can actually
On that, I'd say too, in general, when we asked them if they're in general supportive of funding for National Weather Museum, a majority, 55%, said that they would likely be supportive. It's when you specifically ask them about the way that they would be taxed via a bond that flipped a little bit. And so, again, with a persuasion that campaign, that could be changed.
I appreciate that insight. That's solid. Councilmember Grant.
Yeah, I would second having more info, and I also think we're still talking about some of the things that people would vote, reasons people would vote no. So I think as, say, homelessness evolves, that might not be as big an issue for people later down the line. It's very, very early on in this.
That's good. That's a good thought. I like that. Okay, well, I think that's probably good enough for now. We will circle back on this idea, and I appreciate you coming and make a presentation.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, item number 2 on our agenda, discussion regarding a potential Canadian River equestrian facility. And I believe that we actually have a guest presenter for that today. I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself when you get seated over there.
Thank you. Excuse me. Give me 2 seconds.
No problem.
I'm operating somebody else's computer. So. There we go. I'm sorry?
Did you have a PowerPoint you sent in?
It's a PDF. It was on his desktop. I just can't close that. That's why. It's on the wrong side.
There you go.
Thank you.
Might have to double click on it.
There it comes. Ta-da. Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name's Brian Dygert. I'm the owner and operator of 4D Production. We were commissioned to do a study for you. I'm going to give you a brief executive summary. There's a full 55-page report that we had submitted. I want to thank Dan and Lawrence from Economic Development Coalition and Visit Norman, as well as the county, because they commissioned us to do this. I'm going to talk about briefly, I've got to see, here we go. We put together a team of 6 people, highly skilled, highly advanced professionals, 3 of them from here in Oklahoma, 2 of which are from here in Norman, 1 of which is with us, Mr. Travis Polly, senior architect with Populous. Another woman from El Reno, Oklahoma, and myself and 2 others from Arizona. This team completed a feasibility study on a livestock venue for Norman and/or Cleveland County. We looked at this region. We were commissioned to answer 2 simple questions. I shouldn't say simple, 2 big questions. Number 1, what size livestock venue would today's market support? And number 2, what would be the best location in this area? And so that's what we set out to do, and we did it last fall and presented it accordingly. This is the summary of it. We looked, now livestock, I'm going to use 2 terms here quick because livestock is a quite specific farm animal category, and in the report we go into all of those details so you can find them all accordingly. But we're going to break out and talk about livestock generic and equine. So we're going to look at equine as standalone, and then we categorize all the rest as livestock, including poultry. And we also recognize the very active canine part of the industry out there, but we did not try to study canine event activity into the study. We recognize its place and that they utilize venues such as this. We studied all of the livestock activity in the state of Oklahoma. We identified the venues that are currently active in the marketplace and all of the events that are out there. And so that's what I'm going to provide you with the summary. Now, again, this was in 2023. So most all the numbers are 2022 up through 2023. And you can take the last 3 quarters of economy and things are changing rapidly. So the livestock industry itself is a very robust industry, 185 billion plus. And the American Horse Council just published last year's study. You know, it's a $177 billion industry, the equine industry. That's almost 42% increase from 5 years earlier. Now, Pete said that, and I get it, and I'm not an economist, and I don't want to go down that path. But we have inflationary costs and all of those things as well, so all of that is somewhat relative. The point of the story is that it is a robust livestock industry. Shows, sales, competition is a very robust and growing industry, and that's what this study was all focused about. So in summary, if you built a venue, would you realize significant economics coming from it? And the answer is yes. I've spent the last 25 years building and running venues myself, so I have direct experience in this space from ground zero up as well as redevelopment. The study will also tell you that the equine industry itself is growing and moving rapidly, and Oklahoma is in the center of the country. You guys are seeing activity that lots of other parts of the country are not seeing, which is a positive thing. What does that tell you is you build a proper venue and operate it right, the economics that are going to come off it are very robust, and that there's plenty there. So that's the bottom line to it. A couple key pieces, because the venues that you've got operating in the state of Oklahoma are operating at less than 5% event turnover rate. That means 95% of those events are recurring year after year after year. That's actually half of where it was 15 years ago. It used to be 10 to 12%. So, which says the market, there are not enough venues in the market. They're operating, these are venues in Oklahoma. I'll tell you them in a second, but you got 70 to 85% of the venues are operating at 75% of the available weekends, 36 to 45 weekends. Event producers themselves will tell you, we did 2 big surveys, but over 85% of the producers say there are not enough venues. They can't get dates. So events are directly proportionate to the availability of venues. The study itself, we did 2 formal surveys. Again, we identified 20 venues in the state of Oklahoma that are operating in this space. Some of those venues are also county and state fairgrounds, like, for example, Oklahoma City and Tulsa both have fairs on those grounds. We did not study the fairs. We studied the venues and the non-fair livestock activity. So that's what the study and the data will tell you. We did that with event producers. Now, there's 20 active venues in the state of Oklahoma, and then we took 10 venues that are in the surrounding states. Why? Because mobility is just as easy as it is. Then we also identified over 200 horse shows, approved horse show activity, approved under national governing and sanctioning. There's over 200 of them happening in the state now. We then grabbed that group and surveyed that group of event producers and talked to them about their needs and their wants and their desires. And those are all events that are happening in this corridor. So that's what we did. That's the 30 venues, 64 producers doing over 200 events. And then we did a significant amount of phone interviews as well. The response rates accordingly, half of the venues responded, 65% of the event producers responded. My office is still getting phone calls from the event producers saying, what's Norman gonna do? So, and I have to say, I don't know yet. This tells you the market itself, and this is what's happening when you look at the venues that are happening right now. Which is half of it's horse, half of it's non, which is other special events, trade shows, expos, entertainment centers, all of those things. About 11% of it is livestock, which is your other beef, cattle, swine. Poultry is actually a very significant one. I was speaking with Councilmember Grant a little bit earlier. You actually are seeing poultry shows here at your fairgrounds routinely. That's unique. That's not every place is seeing that. So the venues and the event producers are saying the exact same thing. All the events are growing. Over 60% of the events that are happening now are in growth. They are growing. And they both say the same thing. And then they also both say that venues are turning producers away because they don't have available dates, and producers can't find venues with dates. So it's the exact same thing. When you look at capacity and size and scope, because this was one of the conversations that I early had with Dan, because the point is Norman here is a suburb of Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is a very dominant structure. You got Tulsa as well, Fort Worth not far. All of this is like next door. But the answer to that equation is what size? And so this tells you what the market is doing right now, and it splits right at 600. So at 600 and lower is where your event activity is. Now this is all horses, okay? So at 600 and fewer in horse capacity is where the market is. You got 3/4 of it. That's where the size and they're needing to be. You have 1/4 of that activity that is then over that, and it gets into the megas, gets into the thousands of animals. And so the recommendation coming out of this study, you're going to see it in a second, but this tells you exactly where the market is and what they're doing. And the bulk of it's in this 200 to 400 range. Our recommendation coming off the study is that you all would look at a venue of this size and scope, 150 acres roughly, and 150 acres allows you to go to the future. It's not about minimum, it's about not limiting yourself into the future. That's where 150 acres comes from. And Mr. Pauly will be able to speak a lot when we get into some of the size and fit. 600 stalls. And I'm using stalls loosely because 600 is just on the horse. You do ×2 for beef, ×3 or 4 for short legs. It's really about the key to a venue is flexibility and infrastructure so that you don't lock it to just one species. If you want a livestock event expo that's going to be used 52 weeks a year and produce over 400 event days, you're going to have a flexible space that you can house multiple different species. That's what that component is. 6 arenas, 2 of them are climate controlled, 2 of them are open air, and 2 of them are outdoor. That is the core of the size and the scope and the answer to question number 1. There it is. And why is because of that 600 break. There's another piece in that, because you can do two to 300 horse events at once, or one 500 to 600 horse. And generally when they get to the 500 and 600 horse size, they're gonna be 5 to 6 days long. Those 200 and 300 horse shows are 2 and 3 days. You can do 2 of those at once, or 1 week long. That's where this gets to be. Climate control is actually, I would tell you, it should be a given in today's time. We've solved this puzzle as humans. I can tell you in the venue space, we've mastered this as well. Technology is there, Populous, I've used them myself. I can tell a great story out of that, and going through COVID as well. But climate control is actually a no-starter. I wouldn't recommend even letting this project go forward if you're not gonna look at climate control. In today's time and for what you're wanting to do, and especially in this area, you've got a moderate climate, so you want to be able to do both. A little bit of heat, a little bit of air conditioning, and you will see a very robust facility. And all this does is tell you 3/4 of the venues that are operating in Oklahoma now have at least one climate-controlled building. A few of them have 2. Your event producers, over 60% of them are going to say they need at least one. You got a quarter of them are telling you they're needing 2 or more. Which is about the growth. Where are they going? When we look at site selections, we looked at 12 different. We did not go to landowners. We did not engage realtors. We did not go to brokers. We took logical space, did a fit analysis and a pro-con analysis, 12 different sites in this area, including we kept in consideration the possibility of a cooperative effort with the Cleveland County Fair. We did sit down and talk with them and talked about, we looked at their facility, that kind of stuff, but what could a collaborative effort look like between those two? It is common, it's very common in the venue space. And what does that business arrangement look like? I'll leave that up to you all, because you can do it in multiple different layers. But having the Cleveland County Fair and a Norman equine livestock venue, there's a lot of opportunity there to explore. We looked at 12 different sites in this area. We did a fit analysis, access, amenities, proximity, neighboring, compatibility. That's a big thing, especially with urbanization moving as it is. I've lived through that one myself as well. We identified 5 sites that will work. I'm not going to go through all of them. We're going to hone in on our top site selection. The report will show you a lot of details in this area as we go. This is our concept, and it's only a simple concept. I think this is some of the most fun part when you're doing this part in this industry. But this represents, the left-hand column is the RV spots, because 150, mobility is a big piece. We travel with our animals, and we now have living quarters that are fancier than most of our homes. That's true. The downside to that is it requires power. So the 50 amp sites, that kind of stuff, and then what do you do with sewer? Because those are just pieces. The longer they stay, the more those things become important. The good news is they'll pay for it. That's all beautiful. So it becomes the business side. The left-hand side is representing the RV sites. Right-hand side is showing you the building infrastructure. The 2 top buildings are climate controlled. I use Coliseum. You're talking about 2,000 to 4,000 capacity, people capacity, 150 by 300 arena is a center point with concourse. I would make it flexible. I would not make them permanent seating. That's a different conversation. But that's what those 2 buildings represent. In the top left, it's a little bit bigger because we left expo and vendor space in that building. Again, if you have one bigger event, it's going to have a central point and everything works from there. If you have 2 events going on at the same token, one's going to have one and the other. 4 barns for livestock, 2 covered arenas, and then the rest.
Is steel construction most common for the big climate-controlled venues?
Yes, extremely common. Our top site recommendation out of all the ones that we looked at, there's a parcel on the, I'm going to use, the Moore family has a parcel on the north side of the river, southeast corner of I-35. Lindsay Street goes through it. There are some assumptions. We were very casual in this piece, so in the report, you'll see 2 different layouts, but this is our top site recommendation for a number of factors that I alluded to already. This would be number 1. And this is what it would look like when you put one of the overlays. We did another overlay that you'll find in the report, because there's a parcel on the north, that's Lindsay Road running through it. This is putting the entire complex on the south side of Lindsay. There are options here. Yes, you've got some other due diligence to do here. The river is a big piece. This is on the north side of the river. It's got floodplain, hydrology, and some engineering needs to be done as next steps pieces. But this provides a significant amount of opportunity for everything that you're wanting to do plus. We could actually, our team could brainstorm with a number of other community amenity, when you talk about outdoor space, trails, riding, bikes, all those kinds of things, other community programming that you could do accordingly. This provided the most of all of those options. We provided, this is an attendance chart. Dan had asked us to do this when we were bringing this study to a close, and what we did is in two parts, because they had asked if, could this be built in phases? The answer is yes. You could build one building, 300 stalls, one covered arena, one arena. But you're still going to do 75 to 100 RV sites one way or the other. I'd tell you to go do them all, because the cost to do them is already there. But the top chart just shows a phase one, so that would be a 300 stall, one building type of attendance. 36 weekends booked in both. The bottom chart is a full build out. Our recommendation of the study is to do a full build out. Why? Is because you're going to spend it and do it, get on with it, and you're going to, it's all going to move quicker and more efficient, I would tell you. And I've built a couple. The difference, 36 weekends, but you'll see the difference. It's in horse capacity and length of days. And those are directly proportionate to people days and how long they stay. And that is directly proportionate to the economics that you're going to see. The beauty in the livestock world is that it is a lifestyle. End of story. We live it, we eat it, we sleep it, we drink it, we travel with it. That's what we do. And are we committed to it? And the answer is yes. It makes it very dependable. It's got some uniquenesses in that category, and I would put the assets high on that list. So anyways, that's what that provides you. Again, the full report's got all of these details in it. I'm going to give you the last few next steps, because define the primary purpose. What do you want this project to do? What do you want it to do? And then you're going to have to prioritize the livestocks, the species in those things. Can you do 2 or 3 of them? Yes. Can you do all of them? Probably not. There's just uniquenesses and nuances, including rates and fees. I won't get into that at this spot. Securing, starting to work on site selection, site procurement, because you guys are going to have to go through that exercise. And what does that mean? Developing next level site plans. And I'm going to tell you, you've got one of the best that I know of ever. It's got offices right here in Norman. So anyways, they have specialties in this space, and I've used them on a couple projects in the past.
Councilmember Schuler.
Just a question about the different types of livestock that we could do. You said 50% of the industry is equine, so obviously doing that, what fits best with horses? In terms of a venue?
Well, here's what I can tell you. It's not about what fits best, it's what else can you do?
Okay,
Because you're not necessarily going to do them together. Does beef cattle and horses commingle? The answer is yes, because we use beef cattle for competition with horses. We do. Roping, cow horse, cutting, etc. The beef cattle, the livestock industry of showing to sale to breeding is a very growing segment. I was overwhelmingly surprised, including the showing of poultry, because I actually thought that one was a little bit, you gotta be kidding. But they weren't.
Expensive chickens.
And it's serious. So, which is no different, because people think I'm crazy too, so it's okay.
so it's really about thinking about the mix of types of programming that you would like to have in the venue.
It's the flexibility of the venue to adapt.
Okay.
And that's where that's where in your design, in these next steps, when you sit down with a design crew, it's fulfilling that need. Flexibility. I'm using the term flexibility because when you're going to spend technology and manufacturing continues to move forward. Like, for example, you would not build permanent horse stalls. You build horse stalls that can be used for cattle too.
Right.
And you reconfigure them. Does it make sense?
Yes.
That's the best. When you do your wash stalls, you make them inside, outside. Why? Horses want to be inside, beef cattle want to be outside. Same thing with sheep. So it's figuring your infrastructure.
Okay, perfect.
Does that answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Michael.
When you looked at what the county's doing up at the county bar, obviously they're changing the display space and stuff like that. Are they not gonna do anything to the barn in the back?
At your county fairground?
Yes, sir.
Here's what I can tell you. I don't want to speak for them.
Yeah,
We looked at them, and Populous had actually worked with them in the past and looked at some master planning. The point of the story is what they have right now in land is landlocked and would not fit. We couldn't provide you a study and recommend you putting capital into a landlocked place. It would not fit in today's market. That's the answer to that. Then we talked about where does the fair and the fairgrounds want to go? And there was conversation in there because here comes. Most all fairs should be very focused on producing quality fairs for their communities, whether that's county or state level. Where they get bogged down is they get bogged down into running venues. And that requires additional capital and resources that always pulls on the fair components. I'm only telling you what, so there is luxury and opportunities there if you talked about those two together. I'm not trying to pick for Cleveland County, but the point is, if they wanted to be focused on running a high-level quality county fair in a modern venue, I would have them as a long-term anchor tenant, and then the county can figure out what to do with this land over here. And then they could be absolutely focused on running the best county fair that they wanted. And not get bogged down with all that other stuff. And they could actually plan and prepare on the fact that it was gonna be what they wanted when they got there. Does that make sense? Yes. Which is very different than running a venue that also produces a fair.
Yeah.
So when we looked at the fairgrounds, the land mass is just, it's, one, it's landlocked, two, it's too small. And it's not sufficient to produce what we would be recommending for you.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
Do you have anywhere in the report kind of what one of these typical individuals might spend in a community during their week-long stay? You know, are we talking $1,000? Are we talking, you know, just loosely, just kind of,
Here's it. The answer is your per diem per day, because if I back you up right here.
Right.
If you look at those people days.
That's what I'm-
Top one's 89,000, you do full build out, it's 140,000 people days.
Right.
Because the difference is the length of event days, 4.3, which will produce you 124 event days versus 100 event days. Well, you take 5,000, 6,000 people for 124 days, and they're spending, what do you spend when you go out of town?
that's kind of,
Yeah.
So here's what I can tell you in the horse world. Our horse shows are getting bigger and longer. We're spending a week plus there, which means how much we're spending what we used to spend 500 to 1,000, we're now spending 3 to 4,000 plus. So when you have animals, you've got some other expenses to go with it. The vet's sitting over there, and so, God bless them all. I mean, we need the vets.
Right,
So,
right.
but you have all of those things to go with it, so it's not only the people, it's the rest of it. But you're in the thousands
right.
per person, and it's about length of time. But you can put it into, it's not hard to figure out.
Well, fortunately, in Norman's case, you know, we do have a very local vet, so those dollars are going to be invested back into our local economy.
But
So-
this is you've got two things that are not only, are they residents here, but they are nationally renowned,
I absolutely
high
agree.
caliber.
Yeah, yes.
So,
Very fortunate.
yes.
Well, that's fascinating. I was really just trying to see if we could quantify what the financial impact would be to the city in terms of, you know, restaurants, gas stations, and,
Well, I can give you two simple, and in the report I make reference, because Oklahoma City and Tulsa both released economic impacts. I also released an article that was done in Weatherford, Texas, because they're looking at doing a 250-acre facility. And they did an economic impact study on that. But Oklahoma City's 130 to 140 million on an annual basis because of the horses, not because of the fair, because of the horse activity. Tulsa was 124 million. So now they're almost double the size of this.
sure,
So let's be conservative.
$50 million.
There you go.
I mean, that's it's not chump change. And then,
No.
And then I got a question for Mr. City Manager. Would this qualify for our hotel motel tax in terms of parks, arts, sports?
We, The Sports Commission, well, and I would ask one of our local experts, I would say equestrian sports is a big giant deal, and they're in the Olympics. So I would say, Dan, equestrian sports have to be part of the Sports Commission and your ability to go out and fill venue days and market the heck out of it.
Absolutely, yes, that would be something that would fall under the sports commission. If it's a competition that you get a ribbon or a pin or something, it's a sport activity that we would go after.
Awesome.
We're
Love to
very
do that.
much-
That is the difference in this whole aspect of the industry, the livestock industry. It is all competition. It's all sanctioned competition. All of it, all the way down to showing birds.
That's awesome.
I have had two city clerks who were horse ladies, and they would tell you they spend an ungodly amount of money traveling around with those horses and living in the front half of a horse trailer. And the people live in the front, and the horses live in the back,
That's
and they are
fascinating.
incredible recreational vehicles.
Well, it's not a cheap hobby
No.
either. So if you're in, it's a lifestyle, as I think you
It's a
said.
lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
difference.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle.
Well, I mean, I think obviously that, the impact is pretty clear of what this could benefit. So I think on our side, it's what's the cost? What is the benefit from the cost, and are we able to make it pencil? And it seems like it's gonna be pretty hard to not make it pencil. Councilmember Schuler.
So I know that this particular parcel north of the Canadian River was part of the original Norman Forward. We didn't have a ton of money in that, but like, would this still be considered as part of Norman Forward, or could we loop this into like the next phasing of Norman Forward? Just trying to think of funding streams, and then also relationships with the county to see what do they intend for, the fairgrounds, and how can we be partners in kind of the future of all of this.
That particular parcel, we did meet with a property owner who has a long-standing relationship with members of this team and recognized value. And the first thing you think of was, well, this piece of property works great. Is it possible? And the answer is, we do believe it is possible for such a development with this particular property owner's participation. I think the connectivity to the Canadian River Trails opportunity is huge, and a multimodal trail system for horses and bicycles and joggers and in all of it. You always need a place to start, and you need a place to park, especially from the equestrian perspective. And not too far outside of that picture, there's actually 200 horses that live just west of that particular venue that nobody's riding anymore. They don't have places to go do these fun things. So there's a lot of synergy around this particular piece of the map. Timing-wise, because the last project on the list for Norman Forward is that Canadian River piece, and Jason, was there $1 million, I think?
2 million.
Two,
That's probably a great opportunity to start the
land acquisition
connectivity.
or,
It'd probably be a long-term lease on that particular property, part of the family ranch, but definitely long-term enough to be able to develop public assets on without any consternation. The design of permanent structures and then open and then non-vertical construction where the floodplain is, I think, fit on that map. And I don't know if you guys understood where the floodplain was when you were putting the site plan together.
It's really hard to see on that light color, but yeah, that's gonna be one of the big challenges, the first things we wanna look at is how we wanna best deal with that. We tried to locate the buildings there on the high point. It's kind of a little portion that's not in the floodplain, but yes, that's kind of the big X factor with that site.
yeah. So, I know we've talked about whenever we built the transit station, the name that we were gonna call it Stephen told, yeah, so I would love to propose a name for this one, just, we can think about it down the road, but, Dr. Carter has been such a, advocate for this site particularly, and, the equine industry and all that kind of stuff, so I think we should call it the Dr. Joe Carter Equine Center.
You must be reading my thoughts. You beat me to that, actually. Before Councilmember Holman starts, I just want to tag on to that line of thinking. So with the $2 million, could we cut the design team loose to actually do what the facility drawings would be so that we actually had a bid package for whenever we, again, just like our previous topic, having an actual plan, like something to show that is more than just idea on paper, words on paper.
It could go a long way in that, support for the
Cover
Norman
ready.
Forward 2 question.
Yep.
Gotta have a picture.
Yeah, so the ballot language for Norman Forward 1, if the question is, could we use Norman Forward 1
Right.
funds, is to develop, improve, construct, and equip existing public parks and acquire a site to construct and equip future parks consistent with the Greenway Master Plan, Parks Master Plan, such as but not limited to a Canadian River Park.
Okay. Okay, so that sounds promising. And from what I understand, this idea has been in several greenbelt studies going back several decades. And I don't know the exact history on that, but it seems to have been a priority of the community for a long time. So I think it fits there. Councilmember Holman.
It doesn't specify nature park, does it?
No.
Okay.
Canadian River.
So it doesn't have to be passive necessarily. I would expect there would have to be some sort of park feature to it.
And that RV
Next to
park
it, that's
piece
part of
may
the,
qualify.
whether it's an actual play structure or park amenities,
Trails is what I'm thinking, yeah.
But making sure that it is this facility, but also is a
Trailhead in
river
that
park,
design.
basically, like we had in mind.
Yeah.
My main question about the location there is runoff from a facility like this. So I'm thinking about waste
Yeah.
from animals.
Poultry runoff, yeah.
How does that not impact the river in a negative way? And I assume this wouldn't be the only facility ever built next to a river or a stream, so.
And there's
But
currently
that is-
livestock standing on both sides of the river all the way up to Oklahoma City, and that is an interesting.
Yeah.
Does it show up? Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
We don't measure a lot of that because it goes to Lake Eufaula as opposed to Lake Thunderbird, so
Yeah.
we don't.
There was actually an Oklahoma State Supreme Court case, I don't know, about a decade ago, where it was an Arkansas poultry farm that was dumping waste into one of our bodies of water drinking supply. And so, I mean, there's precedent for that kind of stuff. I'm sure that you guys have solutions to,
What I can tell you, yes, you're on a big topic. I've spent a good portion of my career when you talk about, I'm a certified horse manure specialist. So, and it's funny and
It's
it's
a
true.
valuable commodity.
So, but the point of the story is, because I come from North Carolina and the runoff, coastal plains, blah, blah, blah. It's, the animal waste is a big piece, stormwater is another one. The beauty of that is, for the most part, most of that's been solved. And are there multiple options in today's time? Horse manure, because a lot of it's wood chip, which is carbon. And so can you reuse that in other ways? There's multitude, including, bear with me, because let me just give you some examples that are in the industry. Because what happens at commercial venues like this, the bulk of those wood chips they're all kiln dried, disinfected when they get opened up and the horses get put on them. Horses don't spend enough time on them to dirty them to a large portion. So a lot of it is still good. Which means, and the point is, there's a lot of facilities that are, the dairy industry will use those in freestyle dairy operations. And then the high nitrogen from the dairy and it goes into liquid. And
Right.
there's multiple ways by which, I'm just giving you one. Commercial composting is very common. Energy is also becoming more common. Incineration components. So the waste handling is a growing technologically advanced function, and the stormwater is what you just do when you design it.
right.
That's all.
Yeah, that
Well,
was a main thought though, is like, yeah, there's a big event, there's hundreds of horses there, and it starts raining really hard.
Right.
And then how does that site run off, and what is it carrying with it?
But I can tell you some creative ways, especially when you talk about with run, because one of the things that a venue like this gets to using, water use on a normal routine, whether it's washing of animals and/or dust control for ground and competition. And so you actually capture a lot of that water and hold it and use it when you need it. And it's very cost effective to do it, when you have the space.
Well, another synergistic aspect of that site that you've picked is it's about a mile from our compost facility. So there's a very nice back and forth right there that I think
The
would
city
work.
one?
Yeah.
Well, I like the idea of being able to potentially have a facility like this in Norman and incorporate the river park aspect of it at the same time, so
I agree.
I'm definitely,
And real quick, I did pull up the brochure from Norman Forward. Ballot language wasn't as specific as the promises we made in these brochures in some cases. And so what it says here is, Canadian River Park, development of trail facilities and enhancement, if land is acquired. park area would be located south of Lindsay Street, west of I-35. So I do think
Okay.
our
Wow.
contribution should probably be limited to trails, if it's from Norman forward, just to make sure that we're staying true to that promise that was made.
What about infrastructure such as like water lines, sewer lines, that kind of stuff?
I mean,
Because that's to
the overall-
enhance
I just think
The overall
would need
land
to be
itself.
true to the development of trail facility. So as part of the trail facility, sure.
that. Gotcha.
I worry too about the land being acquired if we're talking about a lease.
Mm-hmm.
That might be something we want to look at too, but
It sounds like there's some things we need to flush out on our
yeah,
end,
we need
but,
to look at that a little more.
okay. Well, I mean, while we have former council member Carter here and Dan Shem with Visit Norman, is there anything you guys would like to add to this presentation?
Well, just thank you today for even considering it. Thank you for funding this study. I mean, it's one of those things. We have developed this expertise of taking care of big horse shows across the country, and the economic impact is, incredible, I think. And I think Norman's location, central, I-35, I-40 is just a natural, and every facility's at capacity, just like Brian said, and it's just a wonderful opportunity. I think it fulfills the mission of what we've envisioned at the Canadian River Park since really 1985. That was the first time.
Wow.
It was reaffirmed in 2009 in the Greenbelt study, and then again 2015 in the Norman Forward. You blend this in, and as a small businessman, I always appreciate revenue streams. When we look at trying to fund things in this city that we want to do, whether it's homelessness or whether it's affordable housing or whether it's park maintenance or expansion of new parks, you need a revenue stream. And Joe's cowboy math just on this thing is about $1 million a year, on sales tax revenue that can come right into the general fund,
That's awesome.
and be used to, not only do the things we're trying to do, but also maintain this park, maintain that park, even reach out. We've talked about, Lake Thunderbird's the next piece. There's a feasibility study going on right now, out there. Unused assets, what assets do we have that are underutilized?
Absolutely.
These are underutilized assets, and I think we're really doing this, to me, it's for the next generation. This is for all those aspiring young veterinarians, for example, that are around Norman, that, they don't want to go to work in Dallas. If they want to be able to stay home and work where they grew up. And this is going to be, there's about 20 horse veterinarians just in Norman, just to, just think about that. There's about 50 horseshoers probably.
That's
It's crazy. A horseshoer's a six-figure job.
Wow.
I mean, a decent horseshoer is a six-figure job. It's hard work, But those are high-end, and everybody's got big vet bills, so you know what the vet deal is. Anyway, just thank you so much. I mean, I think you're doing this for the next generation, just even considering it. And I do think it would be wildly popular if you want, if the foresight of the council would be to put it in Norman Forward too. I think it could be one of those things that kind of helps,
Yeah.
carry it across the goal line, so to speak.
To add on to that, the first presentation on the Weather Museum polling, I view Norman as the weather capital of the world, and having something like the Weather Museum here makes sense. Oklahoma City is the quarter horse capital of the world, and we're a part of that metro. This is low-hanging fruit. We're an area known for this. We're not building from scratch. This industry knows this area and wants to come here. And with Oklahoma City building a mega facility, as Brian's numbers showed, there is room for a smaller facility like this, and it would be tremendously successful with the name recognition that Oklahoma City already has.
And the fact that you've got a SPUI right there on I-35 that
Yeah.
can handle the traffic, and you're not taking them very far off of I-35 to get to a venue like this is wonderful.
Well, the one thing Oklahoma City doesn't have is beachfront property on a river right here. I mean, so they,
One quick other comment that I would share with you, if you look at the current MAPS program that Oklahoma City's doing, what's the first facility they're building?
Yeah.
Ford Show Specific Arena. Why are they doing that? because it's gonna generate revenue to pay for everything else. You know, so you do this thing first, you're already generating sales tax revenue to offset the expense of any other projects that dovetail into it. And it just becomes a giant win-win for all the other things, whether it's a homeless shelter, Andrews Park renovations, you know, improving the Young Center, doing some more stuff at Reeves, you know, whatever, the Weather Center, all of that stuff. It's all, this thing, it's just, they're just cash cows.
I completely agree. I mean, I think it's pretty clear economic impact is through the roof, and so I like the term low-hanging fruit. Yeah, it seems like this is something that we need to get serious about quickly.
Dr. Carter did not say I told you so, but he did tell us so. And now,
Well, I think the fact, again, that this has been voted on by, the people in Norman Forward One, it's been reaffirmed in several studies, it's long past due. So I'm very excited to see what next steps are and what we can do on this, but I think, is there anything else from council on that? Okay, well, we'll move on down the road on that idea. Thank you guys again for showing up, and appreciate the presentation and the insight there, and I'm sure it's not the last time we'll be talking.
Thank you for having.
Thank you. Okay, we've got 3 more items, and it looks only about 20 minutes left, so I just want to ask staff, are any of these time sensitive? They need to be talked about today? The last 3? So, Ms. Hudson, would you mind going next?
I don't mind
Okay.
going.
Sorry.
Don't mind
If
at
I'm
all.
not going, I have park board right after this, so.
Right.
Oh, do
Okay,
you,
so
do you need
we're
to?
not, we're not doing,
Well, I don't know, we'll see. I just want to make sure we get through the things that have
well, I have to
calendar.
go prepare for the next meeting. That's the only reason I was saying, if
We can
we
find
can knock
yours.
mine down to
Yeah.
next month, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I, are you gonna leave?
Yeah.
You are, oh,
I
okay.
prepare for park board.
Okay, no, that's, I was gonna just do one of mine and then you could do yours.
I just don't want, I want to make sure if this is an item coming to council soon, that we don't miss our window.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
just do one of mine if that's okay. How do I get this? I can't, how do I get rid of that little block? Can you get rid of the little block?
Click on
Laura,
it. Just click on it.
there were so many people.
make it go away. Laura?
The study.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay.
And then they saw, there's no, now they're balloons. It's fast.
Okay.
Watch.
So,
Sorry.
ready? Sorry. So the one, so I don't have to do the other one if we don't want to today, the home occupation, we can put that on the next one if you want.
Okay, so this is item number 5.
Is it
This, yeah.
Review
The
of,
R1 stuff, single
the
family.
undersized lots?
yeah, review of undersized lots for permitted development consistent with R1 single-family dwelling districts uses. Sorry, I just want to get that out there.
So this one is a little bit time sensitive, and that's why I wanted to go ahead and do it today, because we would like to bring this forward if it's all right with council. So this is regarding, we recently did the ADU changes, and we do have some, as we go through this, we're realizing that there might be some other lots that we don't want people to have to go to Board of Adjustment. Again, we've gone over this a couple times. But if some of these lots are considered non-conforming or don't necessarily meet the test that was currently in the zoning ordinance about the 1954 date. So what we're looking at is we're going to mirror what's in the subdivision regulations, which looks at the June 29th of 1973 date. So any lots that were in a particular configuration prior to that time, they would be recognized as legal, and then someone could do the ADU, is really how this all came back around, so full circle.
Still non-conforming, just legal non-conforming.
Right,
Okay.
it just, yes, because the subdivision regulations already recognize them as legal lots.
Right.
But the zoning ordinance had that date of 1954, so.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense.
So that's why, but it was only in the R1, R2, and R3 districts. And so we were going to propose changes in the R1 to add this language that is currently in the subdivision regulations, which calls out the July 13th, July 1954, or by the subdivision regulations, which is the 3605, and that references that 73 date. Same thing for R2.
And then it's also the same thing for R3, but we were gonna just clear up, and you can see right there, the one piece that's annotated, it says on the same lot. It does say that in the R2, and so we were just gonna clean that up and add that to the R3 for clarity on that one. If that's
So the
okay
only,
with you.
the only real change is basically kind of addressing the non-standard quirky lots that we have and making them
Exactly.
optional for ADUs,
Right.
okay.
And the zoning ordinance had that 1954 date, because it said as of adoption of this ordinance, which was the 1954. And so the subdivision regulations has that later date. Just would help.
And the very first handful of phone calls we got regarding ADUs fit in this category, and we thought, oh, but
It's like
great
we're-
to bring them to our attention
Absolutely.
early
In a
on.
way,
Yeah.
as they come forward each time to try and fix some of the.
We knew there
the
was gonna be,
quirkiness.
right, there are unforeseen things that we just, until they arise, we didn't know they were gonna be issues. So I'm glad this reared its ugly head early on, so we were able to get in front of it quickly.
Relatively easy solution.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
Is there any questions from the council on this? No, I think this is pretty straightforward, so.
We'll bring that to you for a first reading.
But we're gonna go to planning commission first. I want to get on planning commission. So I can skip my next item if you want to go.
It's up to you, Jane.
No, it's up to you. Listen, you go.
You stayed, so get
Yeah,
your butt up here.
that's right.
You stay,
We might get through it all afterwards.
I have never
We'll
done
see.
a presentation that's less than like 3 minutes, so, just to warn you.
It's all
Thank you, Jay.
yours.
That's just my intro.
Yeah, I was just trying to be helpful, Jason.
Oh, you were
wanted
super
your
helpful.
time. I know you wanted your time.
Oh, I didn't need time.
He wants to talk about these bike racks, okay?
How do computers work? My first question.
Yes.
All right, let's see.
That's a pretty one right there.
All right, Councilmember Peacock did ask us to kind of review our where we have bike racks and the cost of them and the location of them currently, and then we're going to go over potential sites of future bike racks, maybe at Norman Ford sites that are already done. So real quick, just do a few reviews showing some pictures of bike racks that we have installed. Some of these are in downtown and some of them are in Campus Corner. The tourism one, which was in front of the old Visit Norman building, kind of down by the garage. We recently got that redone and moved over there next to the Commerce Building. And then we have the peace sign that's over there in front of Norman Stamp and Seal. We also have this Buffalo that's downtown, our newest addition, which is down in Campus Corner, is the Umbrella, which is kind of our first one that is a square shape, not your traditional round one. That was actually just installed about a week ago. We do have some that are in park locations, like the skate, roller skate, and then we have cool ones, which one of my favorite ones, which is also in the Campus Corner area, is the Sasquatch. One of our newer ones is the Cookie Queen, which went right in front of the Cookie Cottage. Words are hard for me to pronounce sometimes. We actually have 42 bike racks that are located all around Norman. I don't really want to go into depth of exactly where they are. It'd take me forever to read this, and then you'd have to hear me say college instead of cottage probably about 4 more times. So we'll avoid those. But they're everywhere from downtown Main Street. It goes to east of Main Street. We have some in Campus Corner areas, West Lindsay. We also have several in parks areas, two when they are damaged or if they are about ready to be recoated or repowder coated. We do grab those and put them in storage until we can get them fixed or repowder coated. Just a lot of bike rack locations. These have normally happened through what was our public art board, which was a board that was kind of fell underneath parks, and we partnered with the Norman Art Council for a long time. Recently, through a council action, that ordinance was updated, and now it's fully underneath the Norman Art Council, and it's now referred to as the Public Art Committee. They have funded these for the most part, and they actually have been funded the redoing of a bunch of these. We've redone 17 so far within probably the past 12 months. So when we do that, we just take them off the street. We'll take them to a location, actually in Moore. They'll take the powder coat off and repowder coat them according to whatever color that we want. Sometimes we try to avoid certain colors. They do fade. We're becoming more knowledgeable on these colors, so we know what colors to kind of avoid. It's usually like your yellows or your reds fade a little bit quicker than your blues or greens. So when we were talking to Councilmember Peacock, he had some interest in putting these in Norman Ford location. So I did write down our projects that have been over $1 million a piece. We do have other smaller projects that are usually a couple $100,000 is when we would roll into a neighborhood park. But these are all of our projects that have been $1 million a piece or more. And we have 2 that are down the pike. We talked about the Canadian River Parker Trails a little bit earlier, and then right now we're in our design phase. Actually started a little bit with our ad hoc committee on Saxon Park, so we're reviewing that, and hopefully we'll have a full design to send off to our architects hopefully before the end of the year and get started on that project. When you start talking about the estimated costs of these bike racks, and kind of back referencing to I think we're looking at 10 or 11 possible sites if we were to add these to Norman Ford projects, or cost over $1 million. Estimated costs with these, first of all, how these are developed would be through still the Public Art Committee. So we would send them over there. They would put a call out for artists. Usually your artist fees, depending on what we're asking or where they're going, is probably about $500 to $1,000 per artist. And this would just so they can get a schematic design. We would take that schematic design, hand it over to a fabricator. They would take everything and the actual concept and put this idea that's on paper into bin metal or whatever it is and fabricate this design, and then they would send it off to a powder coat. As you can see, our most recent one, which is the Cookie Queen one we just did, was about $4,000. That was total all in. That was a concept of Councilmember Peacock, and of course he didn't take an artist's design on that one. He just he gave that and provided to us, and we went off and fabricated that, installed that, and so we're kind of estimating somewhere around $5,000 per bike rack. Would be the cost from here on out if you are interested in proceeding with this program and adding more to Norman Ford sites or to other interested areas that are out there. We've had the occasional conversation with a private business where the Public Arts Committee or board has a public occasional conversation where they can donate the money to the Public Arts Committee and they could get a bike rack put in front of their business.
Before I get to Councilmember Grant, I just want to say the reason I thought of the Norman Ford projects is because they're all highly visible projects. They're all fairly unique in their own way, and so there's a branding opportunity and a placemaking opportunity to do, a bike rack that fits the idea or the concept, of the library, the senior center. You can really, I think, have fun with each one of these concepts, and so it seems like a really appropriate place to put a new series of bike racks. And we were talking about this last night in our, study session on Center City and how this kind of street furniture is what makes Norman unique and Pets special. So I'm really interested in it. Councilmember Grant.
Yeah, I'd like to see more bike racks moving forward, and I find that interesting feedback about private businesses. I will say, earlier today I saw a woman taking a photo of her kid on one of the bike racks near one of our local businesses. So I definitely see the opportunity to even maybe have a QR code on these and be tag yourself in our photos and, build on placemaking.
That's a great idea. Holy cow. That's a great idea. Dan should have heard that.
And I will add that too, that Visit Norman is working on a schooner type project. As you kind of see your ducks that are everywhere in the city. They're as we're rolling into the SEC, their plans are to do a schooner thing and offer that out to the public, and businesses can pay for a schooner to be put in there. And he's working with us to get those installed because we have become expert installers. As you can see, we already have 42 out of these hanging out in the city, and we're ready to put more in whenever we get them.
And I know that we're not necessarily flush with cash, so I don't know if we want to make an expenditure like this all in one year, but is it something that we could trickle out for several years?
And, hit up the Arts Council and look for help from all over the community.
Yeah, I think there's sponsorship opportunities. I think you're exactly right.
Since
Council-
they work partner with the businesses that say they want these.
Yeah, turn art into, advertising your business right there.
Or, no, they just want like well, I guess for the Cookie Queen thing, that would fit with that. But, if it's a business, they could commission an artist, give them their concept, and then move it forward to us.
Yep.
Yeah, because I think in front of Apple Tree Chocolate is the apple, and I think in front of Copeland's it's the paperclip, and I think, so, yes, these are public art pieces, but it's not to say they can't tell a story of the business that's been there, or is there.
Or if they put it on their
Calvin's
private
on
business
Campbell's Corner.
Yeah, Visit Norman paid for theirs 100%. So there is the opportunity to go out there and if you're a local business and you want something like this in front of your area, just, feel free to contact the Parks Department or the Arts Council and we can definitely get the ball rolling on
They
something like
can
this.
put it even on their own private business property.
Correct. So if they have a space that's out there, sometimes we can put it in right away, just depending on how much concrete we have out there in front of it. It's usually like if there's an emergency for utilities, these are small enough they either can work around or they can take them out and we can, once the right of way gets repaired, we can come put it back in. It's just a small block of concrete that we usually attach that to.
Well, I'd love to make this a competition with Public Arts Board and actually just open this up as one big package, even if we have to fund it over multiple years. Councilmember Holman.
Yeah, definitely want to see more of them, and would like to see some ideas for ones that can go on the new Gray Street streetscape. Some ones that could be included on Porter where there's space
Great idea.
available. So I don't know if there's actually any bike racks as part of that streetscape. So we've been talking about at Friendly Market for years about getting one in front of our building somehow. And then the new Jenkins project, basically any new road project we're doing, what kind of ideas can be come up with for what could go there and what reflects, could put one in front of Highland Dairy that looks like a milk bottle
Sure.
or something, I don't know. But,
Sure.
just the same theme that we've been kind of doing anyway, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to put more of them in all across downtown for sure, but all throughout the city where there's other options. So I think it's great. I think it's something that's an attraction in Norman. Some people may even try to go find and take a picture with all of them or something.
42 of them, yeah, think about that.
Could be a challenge.
You could scavenger
I was
hunt.
just about to say, well, I had that idea always with the ducks and doing a duck hunt.
Yeah.
But I like this idea a little bit better, actually.
Well, and two, we just kind of put this list together today, and I know my staff loves it when I'm putting together a PowerPoint presentations the morning of what I'm actually doing. So I turned to James this morning, I was like, hey, how many bike racks do we have? And he goes, I don't know, but I can find out for you. So he put together this list. We have it put together now, so we can throw it somewhere on the internet and maybe on the park side or even connect it over to Norman Arts Council and give information how you can possibly get your own bike rack.
It'd be great if it was in a map format, so we could see where the gaps were.
We can work on that. We can work with
Concentrate in
GIS to
certain
do that.
areas. So,
That's not a good
Councilmember
idea.
Schuler.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I can't believe that there are 42. I see all of them, but that's a lot. But we were just talking about this on Tuesday night when we were talking about the Center City Urban Design and Implementation Plan and how they talked about how we do such a great job with this, and it is considered furniture for the streetscape, and I think it does make it unique. And I love the idea of promoting it and saying like, hey, go find all of these things and kind of make it into
Like
a
geocaching.
game and
Yeah.
have the
Exactly,
QR code, and
geocaching.
then that gets sent maybe to Tiffany where she can put together social media stuff, and it just becomes
Yeah.
a big kind of celebration or something. Or we do it on festival days and we highlight different
Right.
aspects. I mean, there are selfie opportunities all over the place.
Tell them how many there are, and then it's up to them to try to
Right.
find out.
Yeah, you
find
tie it
where
to a
they are.
business, and you're able to say, you found ours in front, or you found the one for this business, and we'll give you 10% on your next, whatever the idea is. But there's a collaboration with business, with placemaking, with just the arts count. I think, again, synergy, I hate that phrase, but this has got this in spades, so. Well, I really appreciate the presentation. I think we're all on board with moving it forward. I think the question is just kind of how and when. So I'd love to have a conversation with Public Arts Board, Norman Arts Council, business groups, just kind of see where the potential funding sources might be and how many of these we can do at a time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
No, no problem.
Okay, we are at 5:14, and I don't think we can get through the next topic. Well, I just turned to 5:15, so we won't get to the next topic. We'll save that for next time, but if there's no other comments, this meeting is adjourned.